Welcome, everyone, to July 5th's episode of This is Politics. Actually, I'm wrong. July 6th. It is Monday. Saturday was the 4th of July. And man, what a weekend it was. We're going to get into that. I'll see yous here in about 1 minute, 30 seconds.
It is not the Republicans' fault. It's the Democrats' fault. 11 months ago, I inherited a mess, and I'm fixing it. I am bringing those high prices down and bringing them down very fast.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, you know what I was going to do this Monday? Is just take all of the nonsense that was said and just give a reaction. And I'm still probably going to do that. But I'm still in taking all of the nonsense. So what I did instead was I started reminiscing. I started reminiscing about presidents that were responsible, presidents that spoke from facts, presidents that were presidential, presidents that cared about both sides, whether you were conservative or liberal, regardless if he was going to get your vote or not. You were his constituents. No matter how you win the vote, when you get the job, your job is to take care of the American people. Even the American people that would look you in your face and say, fuck you. Okay. Well, I'm going to do my best job to make sure your life is good. Because that's the job of the president. We don't have that no more. Hell, if you don't kiss Donald Trump's ass, you might as well not even be an American. We're talking about the man who took birthright citizenship to the Supreme Court. Birthright citizenship. That means you're born here. And still plans on doing some shady shit to... I don't get that one. You know, I used to feel, I'm not one to lie. I used to say, if two illegals sneak into the country just to have a baby in this country, that complicates things. Should that baby be a citizen of the United States? You're damn right he should. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you what I see now. What I think of now. That I didn't think of when I was a member of the Realist Party, an independent party that leaned conservative. I didn't think of why. The why. I didn't think of the sacrifices. I didn't think of two parents risking their own lives so their own child can have a chance. Do you know how much they had to give just to get that baby the chance? Because let me tell you something. That baby ain't born feeling sorry for himself. That baby ain't born knowing what country he's in. That baby's not born knowing what he's going to be or what opportunities he's going to have, or she. That baby is just born. that baby's parents birthed that baby feeling sorry for its conditions. That baby's parents knows what type of country it's being born into. That baby's parents knows what they need to do to give that baby the best opportunity in life. And that baby's parents put up all that they had to get that baby here, to birth it in the so-called land of the free. Now, I understand there's a complicated political battle with that. Well, you can't just take the baby away from the parents. So we gotta let them in too. Well, that was called something. Is that what DACA was? Is that what? I could be wrong about that. But there was a pathway to citizenship for those parents. But regardless, you know, if a couple gets on an airplane from Poland and goes on vacation and unexpectedly has a child early, nobody has a problem with that child's dual citizenship. So why did we have such a problem with the little Mexican baby? It's all racism. And I don't care who don't like that word anymore. It doesn't just go away because you don't like it. So instead of going through all the speeches and bullshit I heard over the weekend and give my reactions first, I started reminiscing. Of the last time we had somebody great and presidential who truly inherited a Republican mess. We were on the brakes of not even having a country no more. When all the banks deemed too big to fail were coming down, tumbling. When they didn't bail out Lehman Brothers and let them go down. Which, what's his name? The CEO of Lehman Brothers, who could have been saved if he would have took Warren Buffett's offer, but he wanted to tell Warren Buffett to go screw himself because he thought he had the Japanese. And he ruined that deal. He had to close on down. So we had to go into the Treasury under Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson. Fed Chair Ben Bernanke. And basically have to bail out all the banks anyway. People were going crazy. There was going to be runs on every bank. And I truly believe that only because of that crisis that they wanted a fall guy is the only reason they decided to go ahead and let everybody know what Bernie Madoff was doing. Come on, man. You think they didn't know what Bernie Madoff was doing? But when all that shit was going down, let's say, hey, this guy got $200-some billion running a Ponzi scheme. But was he running a Ponzi scheme when he developed NASDAQ? So what happened in the '08 crisis? I'm going to tell you what led to the '08 crisis. The main thing, truly, that led to the '08 crisis was President George W. Bush, a president I was fond of, and his Fair Housing Act, that everyone should be able to own a home. The hell with debt to income. You're an American, you work, you should own a home in America. So you had people with making $18,000 a year buying $250,000 homes. The fuck? Then not only would they do that, well, hell, let's put a second mortgage on that home and go buy us a boat. It was nothing to just get credit. Buy what you want. And then they were betting on it not to fail. It couldn't. China and Russia had all their stock in it. And then the CEOs and COOs of the banks were trading amongst themselves. There was no regulation. That's what Barack Obama inherited. I can't stand when I hear Trump talk about what he inherited. What did you inherit in 2016? an economy that was sustaining, that was still climbing, till COVID came, and then after COVID, Sleepy Joe. Now that President Donald Trump had to inherit a mess, how well's he doing? I mean, we hear about how great he's doing all the time when you listen to him talk. Everything's the greatest stock market in history, the lowest inflation in history, the best gas prices in history, and all outside of the war, the best this in history. And Americans are making millions and millions of dollars, and we're creating millions and millions of jobs, and people making billions and billions of dollars, these companies. Do you hear anything else? I think I pretty much just summed him up. But when you go to the grocery store, you're putting together hundreds and hundreds of pennies, hundreds and hundreds of nickels. You ain't got no quarters. Maxing out credit cards. Draining bank accounts to feed your family. Bringing home 3 or 4, 5 bags of groceries. And half your check's gone. Then your utilities and bills and mortgages is outrageous. Car payments are outrageous. You see, Bush had the right idea. Bush just didn't have the right economists around him to show him how the numbers work, to show him how he should do it. And poor AIG. Oh, God. You want to talk about an insurance company that was too big to fail? AIG was the insurance company. They insured all them deeds. So when all them defaults came down, AIG had to say, we don't have the money. We insured them because we couldn't lose. You see, you know what I hear when I hear someone like Donald Trump last week or so, when he was talking about how all he cares about is Iran not getting a nuclear bomb. How he doesn't care about Americans' money and pocketbooks and how much money they have and prices and stuff. At this moment, all I care about is Iran not having a nuclear weapon. You know what that said right there? All I care about is my billionaire friends. That's it. because everybody else is being affected. And all I care about is my damn self and what fake legacy I'm going to leave behind. Because one thing about presidents, when they make deals that are a bit shaky, the next president comes in and makes another deal. You don't think a government that doesn't change every 4 to 8 years doesn't understand how America works? We got this moron in here right now. We'll just wait him out. There'll be a day, if they don't decide to just get rid of nuclear bombs like the whole world should, maybe keep some low yielding ones, some tactical ones, maybe a couple of those. But these stupid ones that are just obnoxious, like the Satan 1 and Satan 2, and ones that are capable of taking out an entire city. Hopefully the younger generation that has more love in their heart, that has more of a lot of them, let's just say, are more woke. Might say one day, man, why don't we just get rid of all these damn bombs? I got faith in that. Because one, they don't know much about them. They know they exist. But when you ever actually sit down and talk to somebody under 20 about nuclear bombs and what they do and what they're capable of, you should see the look on their face. It's fucking dumb, is what they say. I said, yeah, I said that too when I was a kid. But you want to know the difference then? Our parents, a lot of them, thought they were cool. Thought it made us the badasses. We got this, we got that. They make us shit. A nuclear war will leave no winner. Except those who go hide in bunkers that got them. But you know, Russia got nuclear bombs that'll pull them bunkers right out the ground. That's how strong they are. So what could you gain in a world post a nuclear world war? There's no world for anyone to live in. When's the day everybody wakes up and says, let's start something, let's all kill ourselves? Anyway, I've been reminiscing, man. And I want y'all to listen to about a year into the great Barack Obama's presidency, when the Republicans Mike Pence, to be exact, at first. Tried to grill him on his comeback plan from the '08 crisis. And listen to what a president, a brilliant man, someone with a plan, who knows which way his plan is going, what needs to be tweaked. Not someone who says, oh, we're going to come back stronger and stronger. We're going to create millions and millions of jobs. Gives you the specifics.
And he said, Congressman, it's not like it was when we were coming up. He said, there's just no jobs.
Mike Pence tried to corner Barack Obama, but he fails woefully. Watch as Pence takes his shot, and Obama calmly tears the argument apart with facts, context, and one simple question Republicans still struggle to answer.
Now, last year, about the time you met with us, unemployment was 7.5% in this country. Your administration and your party in Congress told us that we'd have to borrow more than $700 billion to pay for a so-called stimulus bill. It was a piecemeal list of projects and boutique tax cuts, all of which we were told had to be passed, or unemployment would go to 8%. As your administration said. Well, unemployment is 10% now, as you well know, Mr. President. Here in Baltimore, it's considerably higher. Now, Republicans offered a stimulus bill at the same time. It cost half as much as the Democrat proposal in Congress, and using your economic analyst models, it would have created twice the jobs at half the cost.
You see him laugh? Yeah, right.
Essentially, it was across-the-board tax relief, Mr. President. Now, we know you've come to Baltimore today and you've raised this a tax credit which was last promoted by President Jimmy Carter. But the first question I would pose to you very respectfully, Mr. President.
Pause. You see how Barack just listens? He knows when he's talking shit. You give him a little laugh. But he doesn't argue with him. But he has that smile on his face because he knows that he is 100 times smarter than this man. And he's about to light his ass up.
Would you be willing to consider embracing, in the name of little David Carter Jr. and his dad, in the name of every struggling family in this country, the kind of across-the-board tax relief that Republicans have advocated, that President Kennedy advocated, that President Reagan advocated, and that has always been the means of stimulating broad-based economic growth?
Well, there was a lot packed into that question there, Mike. First of all, let me say I already promised that I'll be writing back to that young man.
Wasn't he great?
And his family.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you passing on the letter. Let's talk about just the jobs environment generally. You're absolutely right that when I was sworn in, the hope was that unemployment would remain around 8 or in the 8% range. That was just based on the estimates made by both conservative and liberal economists, because at that point, not all the data had trickled in. We had lost 650,000 jobs in December. I'm assuming you're not faulting my policies for that. We had lost, it turns out, 700,000 jobs in January, the month I was sworn in. I'm assuming it wasn't my administration policies that accounted for that. We lost another 650,000 jobs the subsequent month, before any of my policies had gone into effect. So I'm assuming that wasn't as a consequence of our policies. That doesn't reflect the failure of the Recovery Act. The point being that what ended up happening was that the job losses from this recession proved to be much more severe in the first quarter of last year, going into the second quarter of last year, than anybody anticipated. So, I mean, I think we can score political points on the basis of the fact that we underestimated how severe the job losses were going to be. But those job losses took place before any stimulus, whether it was the ones that you guys have proposed or the ones that we proposed, could have ever taken into effect. Now, that's just the fact, Mike, and I don't think anybody would dispute that. You could not find an economist who would dispute that. Now, at the same time, as I mentioned, most economists, Republican and Democrat, liberal and conservative, would say that had it not been for the stimulus package that we passed, things would be much worse. Now, they didn't fill a 7 million hole in the number of people who are unemployed. They probably account for about 2 million, which means we still have 5 million folks in there that we've still got to deal with. That's a lot of people. The package that we put together at the beginning of the year, the truth is, should have reflected, and I believe reflected what most of you would say are common sense things. This notion that this was a radical package is just not true. A third of them were tax cuts, and they weren't, when you say they were boutique tax cuts, Mike, 95% of working Americans got tax cuts. Small businesses got tax cuts. Large businesses got help in terms of their depreciation schedules. I mean, it was a pretty conventional list of tax cuts. A third of it was stabilizing state budgets. There is not a single person in here who, had it not been for what was in the stimulus package, wouldn't be going home to more teachers laid off, more firefighters laid off, more cops laid off. A big chunk of it was unemployment insurance and COBRA, just making sure that people had some floor beneath them, and, by the way, making sure that there was enough money in their pockets that businesses had some customers. You take those two things out, that accounts for the majority of the stimulus package. Are there people in this room who think that was a bad idea? A portion of it was dealing with the AMT, right? The alternative minimum tax, not a proposal of mine. That's not a consequence of my policies, that we have a tax system where we keep on putting off a potential tax hike that is embedded in the budget that we have to fix each year. That cost about $70 billion. And then the last portion of it was infrastructure, which, as I said, a lot of you have gone to appear at ribbon cuttings for the same projects that you voted against. Now, I say all this not to relitigate the past, but it's simply to state that the component parts of the Recovery Act are consistent with what many of you say are important things to do: rebuilding our infrastructure, tax cuts for families and businesses, and making sure that we were providing states and individuals some support when the roof was caving in. And the notion that I would somehow resist doing something that cost half as much but would produce twice as many jobs, why would I resist that? I wouldn't. I mean, that's my point, is that I am not an ideologue. I'm not. What? It doesn't make sense if somebody could tell me you could do this cheaper and get increased results, that I wouldn't say great. The problem is I couldn't find credible economists who would back up the claims that you just made. Now, we can, here's what I know going forward, though. Right? I mean, we're talking, we were talking about the past. We can talk about this going forward. I have looked at every idea out there in terms of accelerating job growth to match the economic growth that's already taken place. The jobs credit that I'm discussing right now is one that a lot of people think would be the most cost-effective way for encouraging people to pick up their hiring. There may be other ideas that you guys have. I am happy to look at them, and I'm happy to embrace them. I suspect I will embrace some of them. Some of them I've already embraced. But the question I think we're going to have to ask ourselves is, as we move forward, are we going to be examining each of these issues based on what's good for the country, what the evidence tells us, or are we going to be trying to position ourselves so that come November, we're able to say, the other party, it's their fault? If we take the latter approach, then we're probably not going to get much agreement. If we take the former, I suspect there's going to be a lot of overlap. All right?
Mr. President, will you consider supporting across-the-board tax relief as President Kennedy did?
Okay. Here's what I'm going to do, Mike. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at what you guys are proposing. And the reason I say this, before you say okay, I think this is important to note. What you may consider across-the-board tax cuts could be, for example, greater tax cuts for people who are making $1 billion. I may not agree to a tax cut for Warren Buffett. You may be calling for a across-the-board tax cut for the banking industry right now. No. I may not agree to that. So, I think that we've got to look at what specific proposals you're putting forward. And this is the last point I'll make. If you're calling for just across-the-board tax cuts, and then on the other hand saying that we're somehow going to balance our budget, I'm going to want to take a look at your math and see how that works.
Responsible.
Because the issue of deficit and debt is another area where there has been a tendency for some inconsistent statements. How's that? All right?
Thank you, Mr. President. Paul Ryan from Wisconsin.
What stood out to me in this exchange wasn't that
If that ain't the
What's
truth.
going on, everybody? Hope you're all doing well. My name.
If that ain't the truth. Some inconsistent statements. That says a lot. A whole lot. There has been some inconsistent statements. Because we all know that whenever there's trouble nowadays, that's all you get is inconsistent statements. Oh, we're making millions and millions and billions and billions. We're making so much money. People saying, stop, Trump, stop. We're winning so much, we need to stop. I don't want to meet these winners. Because to me, the only ones that are winners were the ones who went into the Capitol and acted a fool and now got a sludge fund for them, or the only ones that are winners are people who say, hey, I got arrested or something because I supported Trump. Oh, now you're rich. And you know what the crazy thing is? I supported Trump, linked towards Trump. I was never a MAGA, Proud Boy, nothing like that. None of that racist shit. But there ain't a dime I can claim. And I can literally say some bullshit I had to go through. It's all about white supremacy now. And these white supremacists, they're getting up there, man. So, if a civil war breaks out, we're going to be outgunned, outfunded. But we can never let ourselves be outdone. We'd win that motherfucker because we have to. We'll have all the street Dracos out there and guns and all that, man. We're gonna have to pull them all together. That civil war breaks out. You know, you're gonna have people out there not worried about no weapons under disability and nothing like that no more. You got people trying to hunt you down and kill you now. From what I've seen from Trump followers, it wouldn't surprise me. But I've been keeping my eyes on some candidates, man. And this one guy's been on my radar. I'm just not all the way there on him yet. But he spoke over the weekend too. And he's in a position, the positions that I like to see go to the presidencies, governorships, I'm just not sure if I'm all the way sold. But he's a rising up and comer, and I think he'd do a good job. Listen to a few remarks he gave on 4th of July. Oh, Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland.
Independence Day. And welcome to the Maryland State House, where a floor below us, in the old Senate chamber, General George Washington surrendered his commission, and with it, the power to place himself above our country. This deeply patriotic act established that this new nation would take a different path than those who had come before. An aspiration that power would not be passed down by birthright or bloodline or last name. That opportunity would be earned in a new way, That act of patriotism was a powerful idea, and it set the stage for the nation that we live in today. But today, we do face a different test and a different question. What does the work of patriotism require of us? This is a day of reverence, but it also must be a day of reflection. Because the Founding Fathers knew this country was unfinished. In fact, they wrote a document that could be amended. That was not a flaw, that was a function. And the ideals captured at our founding were unprecedented in 1776, and also they remain unfinished in 2026. The history of our country and the history of this state, it is powerful and it is painful. It is complex. But inside that complexity is something uniquely American. The strength for self-correction and the strength to self-heal. My grandfather taught me that. He was born in South Carolina, the child of Jamaican immigrants. And when he was just a boy, he and his parents fled in the dead of the night. The Ku Klux Klan chased them away because his father was an outspoken black minister. My grandfather's earliest memories was of a nation rejecting him for something that should have been a source of pride, not prejudice. Most of his family vowed to never return to America, but my grandfather loved this country too much to let the cruelty of some determine his destination. So he came back. And the late, great Reverend Dr. James Joshua Thomas became the first black minister in the history of the Dutch Reformed Church. In his endless humility, he used to say, "This country will be incomplete without me." But you know what? My grandfather was right. And on this Independence Day, I want to be clear, America would be incomplete without all of us. That is the patriotism that my grandfather instilled in me. Yet today, the very premise of patriotism is under attack. Its meaning is being narrowed, its purpose is being distorted, and we cannot let that happen. So today, I want to talk about why this matters and how we can move forward together. It matters because America's strength has never come from what we claim for ourselves. It has always come from what we give to one another. We are a nation of strength because we are a nation of sacrifice and a nation of service. Our ancestors refused to give up on the hope of America, even when America refused to extend its full promise to all. They could have decided this country was too unequal or too unforgiving to be worth the sacrifice. But it was the women who served as the greatest conductors of the Underground Railroad in the Eastern Shore who led their families to freedom. It was the women in Baltimore who worked in factories while their husbands went to war. It was the young lawyers at the NAACP who argued in front of the Supreme Court that separate does not mean equal. It was the ministers and the rabbis and the imams who left their pulpits and their synagogues and their temples to provide comfort to those who had never seen it before. It was the union steelworkers who prepared our nation for war, and it was the nurses whose hands that healed a nation seeking peace. They were patriots. And instead of yielding to the injustices, they fought for freedoms that they themselves might never fully enjoy. Because patriotism is not simply pride in what America has been. It's taking ownership for what America can become. That is the work of patriotism. Patriotism is neither passive nor performative. Patriotism is not selfish. It is selfless. But today there are those who will use patriotism to justify pulling books from schools and rewriting history until it comforts those in power. In reality, that's not patriotism. That's nationalism. And nationalism is not an extension of patriotism. They are not interchangeable. There's a difference, and it does matter. Patriotism asks you to fight for values and an ideal. Today's version of nationalism asks you to fight for a person or a group. Patriotism wants you to build something bigger than yourself, but nationalism emboldens people to feel bigger than somebody else. To name the grievance, to find the target, to give people someone to blame. The anxiety that creates is where nationalism thrives. Where people worry about our economy, that it will leave them behind. People are watching their children work more, yet earn less. Americans are fed up with watching politicians profit off of public office. Too many feel that our politics has become tribal, that our political system once felt like a gift, but the politics of today feel like a grift. Too many watch as military conflict starts to feel like a conquest, where those who wear the uniform are asked to do the impossible and those back home are asked to pay for the unnecessary. Starting a war without a purpose is not patriotic. Ending a war without achievement is not victory. And telling soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines otherwise is not leadership. It's actions like these that make people increasingly skeptical. And that skepticism is not unfounded. That skepticism is not unpatriotic. The truth is, I still harbor skepticism, and I'm the governor. Skepticism can be our companion, but skepticism can never be our captor. So how do we move forward together? Not by putting our heads in the sand, not by hunting for someone to blame. We move forward the way Americans always have, by doing the work to make things better. Where patriotism asks us to see our humanity in each other. It asks us to fight, not just for what's in front of us, but it asks us to fight for what we see when we close our eyes. It asks us to do what those who came before us did, to fight for the hope of a future, even if we will never see it. To know that our neighbor's pain is our pain too. To know that the person who speaks a different language holds the same aspirations that we do. And that the person returning home from incarceration deserves the same second chance that we were given. To remember that God's grace is not only offered to the saint, God's grace is offered to the sinner too. We've come through a civil war. We've come through the Gilded Age. We've come through Reconstruction and the Depression. What has sustained this country, though, is that through every one of those trials, there have been people who believe that this union can be made just a little more perfect. It's veterans like Major James Capers. And as he told me when I had the chance to speak with him, his path to service in the Marine Corps all started at Carver Vocational Technical High School in Baltimore City, Maryland, where in 1967, when his reconnaissance team was ambushed in Vietnam, he was hit again and again. He kept directing fire and protecting his men. The rescue helicopter was too heavy to lift off. And Major Capers gave the order to leave him behind. And his Marines refused. Every single one of them made it out. And just a few weeks ago, the President of the United States awarded him the Medal of Honor nearly 60 years after he earned it. And I congratulate Baltimorean Major James Capers on this wrong being righted. And a generation before him, a Marylander named Marie Edme Leroux, deployed to France during World War I. She served as a telephone operator with the U.S. Army Signal Corps, one of the trailblazing women known as the Hello Girls. On the Western Front, she connected tactical commands. But when these women came home, America denied them veteran status. Not until 1977 did our government finally acknowledge their service. And a century later, Congress awarded LaRue and the Hello Girls the Congressional Gold Medal. Almost 150 years before her, a black and indigenous soldier named Prince Ames fought at Lexington and Concord and Bunker Hill. For nearly 6 years, he fought for a country and a cause that did not yet include him, but that he perhaps believed maybe one day it would include his children, and maybe even his children's children. And today, in a building that was partially built by the hands of enslaved people, I, his great-great-great-great-great-grandson, now serve as the first black governor in Maryland's history. We are a nation of strength because we are a nation of sacrifice and service, where America asks us to serve a purpose bigger than ourselves. And I believe deeply that service will save us. Because when one neighbor gets involved and pulls in another, they do the hard work together, and that is where progress is made. In 2023, we launched a first-in-the-nation service year option for our high school graduates. While our young people give back, they lay the foundation for their future success through job training and mentorship programs. And also, they create a lifelong habit of service to our state and to our nation, and that is something that we so desperately need. 5 Maryland Corps members and alumni are here with us today. Michael spent his year with SHIP of Frederick County, helping unhoused students reach their education and vocational goals, and this fall, he's attending Mount St. Mary's University to study cybersecurity. Crystal grew up in a military family. And after her service year, Crystal chose to keep serving Maryland, and today she's a technical library assistant at the Department of Legislative Services, just steps away from this very State House. And she will tell you that service is in her blood. Her younger brother Toby is in his second year of the program, serving at the Complete Player Charity. He mentors 4th graders, and he helps lead the Maryland Corps members coming up behind him. Chris is only 21 years old, and he's already helped lead a $750,000 neighborhood and youth development project. Wow. And Isaiah served as a project manager at Action Youth Media in Silver Spring, where he taught young people to tell their own stories through film and music, and this fall, he will join AmeriCorps in Aurora, Colorado. To Michael, and to Crystal, and to Toby, and to Chris, and Isaiah, and all the other young people who are leading the way, thank you. My grandfather was maybe the most patriotic person I've ever known. I joined the Army at 17 years old, and I remember the pride that he had in my decision. He taught me that true patriotism is not a passive activity, because your love of country will be tested in both big ways and small. And while I was serving in Afghanistan with the 82nd Airborne Division, airborne, all the way. And while I was serving with the 82nd, he passed away. And the last gift that he ever gave me was a Bible. It was a Bible that I carried in my flak vest the countless times that I had to leave the wire. And inside it, he wrote 4 words: have faith, not fear. Fear is the accelerant of nationalism. Faith is the foundation of patriotism. So today and every day, let's choose faith. A faith that the impact of our work will be felt for generations to come. A faith that we are fighting for a country that is worth fighting for. A faith that when it's our turn to hand this country off to the next generation, that our descendants will say that we understand the assignment. The faith that our best days are still ahead of us. And that is the work of patriotism. Thank you. God bless this great state, and God bless the United States of America.
Yes. There's a presidential hopeful. The Democrats are starting to stack the deck, baby. They're going to start coming out of the woodwork. Watch what I tell you. They're going to come out of nowhere like Barack did in 2008. And all the Republicans are going to be doing is fighting over who Trump going to endorse. Ain't nobody gonna want his endorsement after this midterm. I think we're gonna be all right, people. As long as this madman don't do nothing fucking mad. As always, blessed be. And I'll probably see you later tonight on This Is Me or Omnicast. Peace.